Well, Simon, thank you very much for having me down here at Ashmansworthy Pools, where I've actually got the rods out last night and managed to have one. But whilst we've been down here, for those of you that haven't seen some of the other videos we've done, we've gone through loads of different things, from the Stonze, the Gripz, the whole fully loaded system from Pallatrax. And we did a competition recently, or a giveaway on our page, of a load of Pallatrax hooks. In return, people just ask questions which you haven't seen yet, but I've got a whole list of them here. So if you don't mind, I'm going to ask you several of these.
A blind interview.
A blind interview, exactly that. So the first lot are Pallatrax related, as that was the post. So I'll just go straight into them. And the first one was, how did you come to the conclusion that the Stonze system as a whole is the best way to fish / present a bait?
I think the main thing that happened to me was I'd fallen into a trap a long time ago now of following a narrative. And then I realised a lake I had, called the Rainbow Lake in Dorset, we were fishing the method, which is my preferred method, and this was a new lake, and the catch rates were just dropping and dropping and dropping. And as an ex-match angler, I started looking at all of my terminal setup, and back in the days I was using these big method feeders, leads and plastic and things like that. And it kind of hit me one day that, is this the problem? Would I be that obtrusive if I was back match fishing? Not that I was the best match fisherman in the world, but and that's when I changed, and I thought, what else can I carry my mix? What else can I use as a fishing weight that will carry my mix? And basically that's where it came from. I started, I got a stone, put a hole in it, and that first night we had 16 fish on. Well, I'd made several stones for some anglers, and we thought, this is a bit of a eureka moment. And then it just kind of flourished from there. We saw all the other basic advantages for it. It did exactly the job as a fishing weight, so it cast and held place. But the main thing for me was it's unobtrusive. It could use it in all styles of fishing. So it's a weight in its own position. It's not associated with lead or method feeders. It's a unique product. And we've obviously gone on and caught thousands of fish all over the world, record-breaking barbel, huge carp, you name it, the Stonze system's featured.
Because this is another quite interesting one related to the stones, and obviously one of the big benefits of stones is the lack of toxins you're putting into the lake. And someone else has asked, stones aside, what other areas of the angling world would you tackle in regards to maintaining and improving water quality in fisheries?
Bait, 100%, 1000%. I mean, unfortunately, I suffered from a fish kill years ago, and the conclusion was we were putting too much bait. We didn't know what it was made of, and then that's really where Pallatrax came from. I started the bait side of things from a fishery management tool. So what was happening, the anglers were basically being supplied the best quality bait I could have. It was all researched from the koi market, from fish farming market. So the fish were on it and they were growing healthily. They were getting bigger, which was fantastic. The anglers were achieving more catch rates. And also it was about cultivating the biomass. So what was the ingredients? It's all about the ingredients for me in bait. HMV baits perform better and also look after water quality. We've dealt with a lot of fisheries over the years where unfortunately certain baits have gone in there, they haven't had a food content, so nothing eats them, then they just rot, and that really does impact on water quality. We're animal feed registered. All bait companies should now be animal feed registered, just to make sure that we're doing the best for the environment. And also as an angler, we want to be fishing on the best quality things to catch more fish.
And then relating to the bait, as you've just said, there's other questions about that, and one of them which is what makes a good HMV bait, so a high nutritional value for those that may not know what HMV means.
High nutritional value, to be fair, it was how baits really started back in the day with pastes. So we were using, certain ingredients that were really good for fish and the ecosystem. We weren't packing them out with synthetics or bulking agents. This was, for me, I don't pretend to be a scientist at all, so I tap into the fish farming market, the fishery pellet market, the koi market. All of these things are accredited, and if you use those ingredients and create the baits, you're miles ahead, to be fair. So it is, again, and I reinforce this, it's all about the ingredients. And I would suggest any angler should actually have the confidence to be able to ring up the bait company they're using and just qualify that they're animal feed registered and these are made from high quality ingredients.
Because there's another question, obviously from our Facebook, and this is regarding to the Gripz range, and this person says, Pallatrax started trading in 2014, 9 years ago, and from what I can see, Gripz range of hooks were online and were advertised in 2015 on YouTube. What makes them different now opposed to the first time round due to the recent push with advertising?
It's the different patterns. That's what we started off the wide gate pattern, which we brought out in the 2 and the 16s, and then we slowly added over the years. So we're now just brought out, well, I've just designed a new predator pattern. The concept of the Gripz is it's all about the hook point. So you've got currently a barbed hook point with loads of patterns, Barbless hook point with loads of patterns, and now we've got the Gripz hook point with loads of patterns, and that's where we're growing. And we're growing into other areas of fishing. It's not just carp fishing, but the carp is our main kind of bread and butter with the Gripz, and it's been phenomenally successful, not just in the UK, literally all over the world. So it's just growing and growing and growing, and it is, you know, revolution is just a change of mindset, and it really is a revolutionary product.
And still staying on topic of the hooks, I've heard you say the phrase cutting edge several times. What exactly does that mean in relation to the hooks?
It's basically a certain manufacturing processes. As an angler, I never knew about this. You know, there's certain grades of wire and certain ways you can actually have a hook made. Now, a cutting point is basically the way to create the most durable hook point. And that's what we're very proud of. You know, you can catch fish after fish after fish. They say incredibly sharp. So it's all about the processes and different processes within manufacturing, and that's where a cutting point, it's an expensive thing, and then you have you're remanufacturing as such, put the tiny grip screws in, so you end up with something that is not only fantastic for fishing and us as anglers, but also for fishery management, which is something that I'm, you know, very close to my heart.
So another question we had, still relating to the hooks, as we've gone over the whole design of them, what led you to come up with the idea of Gripz? What was the idea behind Pallatrax as a whole?
I don't pretend to have invented the Gripz. It actually was developed by a Japanese manufacturer, and they created Gripz onto a sturgeon hook. And I was over in a show in Las Vegas in America, and I saw this hook, and I thought, talking to the manufacturers and things like that, I just found it amazing that we actually did have a third design out there in the world that nobody had really heard of, and it had only been put on this one hook pattern. I came back, did a lot more research, and then approached the manufacturer, and that's where we kind of put it on all of these what I call sports fishing, so the carp scene and things like that. So I say somebody else initially developed it, I grabbed hold of it, and then we've created all of these different hooks. I mean, we've got them now down from size 2 all the way through down to, you know, size 20. We're just about to launch the match range. We do them in trebles, we do them in predator hooks. So it wasn't my idea, I never claimed it was my idea. My idea, I suppose, was to put it onto the hook patterns that we're all using now.
Okay, so this one's more of a fishery or the industry sort of related question, not specifically about the products. You've been obviously dealing with the Pallatrax Gripz, the Stonze, for a very long time. Why do you think it's not as mass market as, say, some of the other bigger brands that are out there?
I think, to be quite honest, one of the reasons we're sat here today, it's lack of marketing, lack of explanation. We've grown slowly. We're certainly fitting in for the times ahead when we're very much environmentally based with what we do. Everything, you know, whether it be the Stonze, the Gripz, the baits, it's all about the ecosystem and the delicate environment we're fishing in. I think in many ways it's probably our time. I think a lot of people are kind of almost tired of the old, same. You know, we offer something very much different. It catches thousands of fish. You know, that's not in doubt. But it is a change. You know, you're radically looking at things as the angler does, and it's different. With these kind of explanations, I said there's no gimmick, there's no hidden agenda. This is genuinely how we fish. We can prove all the reasons. And I think with the more marketing, I've got a fantastic group of people helping in the background on all of the social media, you know, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram. And also we've got this fantastic group of anglers. I created an initiative about 5 years ago called Team Pallatrax. And it's a massive Facebook community, but also we have fish-ins both here and abroad. We have live feeds, competitions, discounts, and this goes on. Why? It's a free initiative. People can join, any age, any sex, any experience, whatever species. And by having this initiative, and I can only thank so many people within Team Pallatrax, that's how it's really expanded a lot more quicker. You know, they're telling their friends, the friends are joining. I mean, it's amazing. We've got members in Thailand, we've got members in America, and members in Canada, Poland. It's just like almost going viral now.
So another one of our viewers has asked, with the weights coming out now described as non-toxic, what's going to be the future with old weights which must be toxic through the logic of the new selling point?
Yeah, it's always been a strange one. I've owned 2 tackle shops as well, and you have in a dusty corner a little like section literally named non-toxic, and then therefore by default everything else is toxic. And more recently, you've got the European Chemicals Agency report. It's something I actually acted as a consultant. There's so many problems with lead in angling. It's not purely what kind of the industry narrative, it's about children handling, it's a smelting process, it's the fumes, lots of things going on. So it's being banned, Catalonia, for example, have just banned lead. Holland are phasing out. It's strange that nothing happens in the UK, and it's great to see that Wolf recently have just brought out a non-toxic range. Dinsmoor's, UFO, lead-free, they're all really coming out. And people are realising in masses now that it's a problem. Me as a fishery owner, as I've mentioned to you, I don't want lead in these lakes. If you drop a lump of lead in here and it goes into the substrate, that's where all the invertebrate life live. So what's going to happen with the old lead? I'd like to find some, it'll be recycled back into where it can be used, safely, I suppose. But without a shadow of a doubt, it's happening all over the world, whether it's North America, whether it's Europe, and UK are very slow to catch up. I'd like to think the EA, the Angling Trust, and manufacturers in general will see that they need to be more responsible, with its things like whatever goes in the water, we have to have a responsibility for. And lead is toxic, and obviously the stones, the bolt-on effect, we use the stones as an angling tactic, but it's obviously fantastic. It's a non-toxic weight as well, genuinely non-toxic, very low carbon footprint. Unfortunately, some of the non-toxics have a very high carbon footprint. I mean, we use a non-toxic bond. I've even gone down to even the swivels of stainless steel because there's no lead content. Brass swivels have a 2% lead content. So I think this phase out will happen. I hope the industry picks up on it and realises it's a responsibility, because after all, a weight is just a weight.
Well, we'll move on to fishery related questions, and as we're on your own venue, it makes sense to do a few questions on this as well. And the first one is, within the industry, it's apparent that fish care, i.e. antiseptic and propolis, are widely used, but very rarely is it seen being applied or advertised or promoted on any of the hundreds of videos on YouTube and TV. With you being a fishery owner and the advocate for good quality healthy fish, do you feel it should be prioritised now, or experienced anglers educated on the importance of the use of it within your day-to-day angling?
Very much so. Fish safety first. Everything else falls into second. But at the same time with fish safety, water quality runs with it. If you've got good water quality, your fish are living in a good environment. But obviously when we take them out, we've got to do our best to look after them. We've got to be aware of things like biosecurity. That's why we supply all the solar kit here. We don't want nets coming away from it. We supply, every swim has the antiseptic and propolis. And I think you actually hit a very important point here, or who's ever asked this question. It should be promoted, but it also should be promoted how to use it. I know a lot of people that have just propolis in them. Propolis is actually, it comes from bees. It's actually an ingredient as such that bees make, where they fill holes in their nests to stop parasites getting in. So as soon as it comes into contact with water, it kind of forms nature's plaster. But the thing is, it's like a human, you need to apply an antiseptic and then apply the plaster. And so you're totally right, we do need more education. I think that's where the Angling Trust, the Environment Agency, all manufacturers and all fishery owners, we should be, I don't like the word education, it sounds a little bit demeaning, but certainly explanation. We should be showing people how to look after fish. If there's any damage, if we take a catch of fish and there's any damage, whether it's a mouth damage, whether it's spawning damage or anything like that, we need to, I suppose, give that back, don't we? We need to be looking after those fish. And by knowing how to do it properly is key. And it's something we've certainly talked about and something we certainly highlight here at the fishery. But it's a very good point, and it's something that perhaps when you come back next time, we can shoot a proper film all about the 1, 2, 3, 4 and all the steps of looking after fish when we take them out of the water.
Definitely. So we've already discussed about bait and HNVs, and I know how important that is to you, but this question is, where do you think that responsibility lies? Is it with the lake owners, the anglers, or the companies to ensure that the baits are HNV and non-toxic to waters?
Definitely the companies. They shouldn't be making, just stuff made of flour and synthetics and a nice colour and a nice flavour. So the responsibility starts, hence why DEFRA have brought in this new legislation. Well, it's not naturally new, it's a few years old now, where you need to be animal feeds registered. And if you look at all other areas of where we're dealing with, I suppose, nature, whether it's farming, koi farming, every food source is regulated. So definitely, without a shadow of a doubt, manufacturers, but also people like, the Angling Trust. We've got thousands of tons of bait of whatever it may be made of. Shouldn't what goes in the water not be polluting it, but be of benefit? So I think the Angling Trust and the EA needs to step up to that one. Fishery owners, we definitely need, obviously with my fishery, you have to fit within the feed programme here. I'm very, very conscious, obviously since I had those problems historically, of what goes in the water will impact. And also I'd like to think anglers, anglers probably need to question more. They should be able to ring up or email the manufacturers just to clarify a point. As I said earlier, you want to be fishing on something that's really good to catch you more fish, but also you want to be safe in the knowledge whatever you're using is actually beneficial. So I think again it's an explanation and education. It hasn't been happening. I kind of believe Pallatrax at the forefront of that. It doesn't necessarily sit well with some, but we've got this overall responsibility collectively to be making sure that we not just look after the fish, but certainly look after the environment they live in. These waters, that's their home, that's where they live. And if we put something in there that's going to impact on the quality of the water, it doesn't just impact on the fish, it impacts on the thousands of different kind of forms of life that live in and support those fish. So it's something that I hope will really come to the forefront. I hope that more basically bait manufacturers will really understand that it's not about profit. Don't get me wrong, there's some brilliant bait manufacturers out there, but I see some stuff out there that really is toxic to water quality. If you're just going to create a ball of flour full of synthetics, it's very, very cheap, very, very profitable, not good for the angler because the catch rate, because it's not a food source, not good for the fishery because it contaminates the air they breathe, if that makes sense. It's all right if you pile a load of stuff that's not all right, but if you pile a load of junk into a field and it rots down, it's going to have an impact directly. But if you put it into a lake, it impacts the whole area, and we're seeing more and more fish kills every year, and I do worry, especially when you've got small lakes like this. If you're going to put a lot of bait in there, you'll reap what you sow.
Now we could discuss the whole barbed and barbless rule forever. Obviously the fact that you brought up the Gripz shows that you've brought out an alternative to either of those, but a lot of venues have a rule one way or the other, and some venues that are barbless don't allow Pallatrax, some do. Why do you think that's such a muddy subject or such cloudy water?
Again, very much what we're doing here is about explanation. I can understand the fisheries being quite cynical. It's a third design. Have they seen it? Are they aware of it? Fortunately for us, it's kind of proven. We've got some fantastic, serious venues that are embracing them, whether it be all the Carp Society waters, or the Southwest Lakes Trust, Burfield Complex, Harriers, obviously Ashmansworthy Pools. The list of those that embrace it go on, because it is a genuine third design and it has these huge benefits over both barbed and barbless. Like I say, it's an explanatory thing. We find when we explain to fisheries that haven't seen them before, their rules are very specific. They're either barbed or barbless or whatever. So they're I suppose reticent to change, and again I can understand that. But what we're finding is thousands and thousands of anglers are now fishing on them, and it's a handful of fisheries that I'm aware of in the UK, and the majority of times it's just that their rules are their rules, and now you've got a third design, and as soon as we explain and show that third design, it's won a Green Apple Award for its fish safety benefits, the angler accolades, they very quickly change tune. So of course it's like anything, it's innovative, so it's something new. They've got their rules in place, they're happy with those rules, and they may well be, I suppose, cynical or whatever about a new product. We see all these new products coming on the market. But the good thing about this is, as it says, it does what it says on the tin. It really is very, very effective. And that cutting point and those little grooves hold it in place. You get very, very minimal mouth damage, super sharp. And I think there's an angler pressure as well. More anglers are going in and saying, well, these are the real deal. Have you seen them? Showing them. And then they call us and embrace them. And we've got like specifically mentioned now in many venues, we are a Gripz venue. So I think you'll find going forward, where you've got venues barbed or barbless, you'll have venues like here and like Harriers, Gripz only, and because it is a third design, and in time we're not expecting it to change overnight, but we're certainly seeing that change. And 99% of the fisheries I know, they actually embrace Gripz.
Well, these last lot of questions are listed under general, so I don't think it's going to be specifics, but the first one is, when fishing a low-stocked lake, deep silt, what's your preferred method?
It's all about location of fish, isn't it, at the end of the day? I'd rather spend 23.5 hours walking a lake and locating them than 24 hours in a swim and there's no fish. That is always the key. And it's hard work, obviously, mathematically, to hit the fish. I mean, one of the benefits we found with stones is we really studied density of the weight. So if you're using a small stone in silt, it doesn't sink into it, it's far less dense, and so it doesn't sink into the silt. So I don't really change my approach other than really focusing on, you know, getting fish in the swim, and then then everything comes in. But I certainly wouldn't advocate fishing heavy weights into silt, because it just pulls everything in and out of shape, and you know, you're on a hiding to nowhere straight away. Fishing in silt is obviously, you know, you can use the chod approach, you can use these kind of things. But again, you know, we need to be very careful with what we're fishing over, whether it be weed or silt or gravel. Everyone will literally give you a different interpretation of a tactic. But in silt, you know, I'd definitely be fishing very, very small weights. And obviously we fish, as I say, the stones, and they give that added advantage of not having the displacement of density. So where a lead will really pull in, stones tend to sit on top of silt.
Okay, this next one is going back loosely to the hooks. I guess it's more to do with your design of them, but do you sharpen your hooks or just change them when blunt? I never used to sharpen mine. I always checked my hooks before I cast and changed as when I needed to. But now it seems they don't stay as sharp as the old generation of hooks used to, and I'm seeing you going through so many more. Did you sharpen or throw away?
No, I don't sharpen hooks, to be fair. I mean, fortunately, with that cutting point technology and chemically sharpened points we've got on the Gripz, they're incredibly durable. That's one of the masses of feedback we get time and time again, is A, how sharp they are out the package. And that's down to the manufacturing process. There is the sharpest way to create a hook, and obviously we've gone down that route, but at the same time, it's more durable. Well, I do believe sometimes when I see some of these comments, and like I say, I don't get involved with, I suppose, the controversy, what other manufacturers are doing. We sit in a very happy place where we are by having premium quality wire, so no bending out of hooks, no snapping of hooks, and then having a hook point that is just so durable. Going back to sharpening hooks, I mean, I see some people, like, they go through a pack of hooks and they might only take out 2 that they think are sharp enough. What we have to be very careful of when sharpening hooks, you know, are we really expert hook sharpeners? I would suggest we aren't, or the vast majority. And also, you're removing the coating. So you're removing the plating, and then therefore the hook can rust. If I have a hook break over or turn over, which is very, very infrequently, I can only remember it happening once to me at Horseshoe, where it must have hit a rock hard or something like that, and I will change the rig. But what I do is I cut it all down and just make sure I keep the swivel. I'm not just going to chuck everything away. But to me, having to sharpen hooks is a bit like buying a car and having to pump the tyres up every time you go out. I think, you know, we should be obviously having really sharp hooks straight out the packet. And it's true, there is a lot of complaints out there on the market. I see it on forums about hooks turning over. All I can say is, fortunately, by going down the route of superior manufacturing processes, you end up getting the best, and you end up getting a sharp hook that doesn't need resharpening, and it's incredibly durable.
So we've got another one actually going back to bait. This one says, Simon, your thoughts on bait/boilies and carp in general on this one. I like fresh/frozen compared to shelf life. Watching underwater vids and so on, your thoughts on this? Do you think carp reject baits because they are too hard? I say this watching some underwater videos and compared to soft boilies, which have been softened in liquids, glug or harder baits, seems to be more rejected and are spat back out. It's likely they can't be bothered with it. Compared to soft boilies, they seem to reject less. Sorry for the ramble, but just thought it just came to me. So softer, hard, frozen, shelf life.
Well, I'm very much into, again, it comes back to the ingredients. I think a lot of fish reject something that has no food content, and we're kind of being a bit naive to believe that they, you know, when they eat something, they expend energy, so they need to replace that energy by what they're eating. And if there's no food content, and I believe when people say baits blow, it's literally that there's just no food content, so they just get used to not eating it. For us, we're very much about softer baits. And a lot of the reason for that is basically the ingredients, the core attractants can get out. I mean, as you've seen here, we actually cut the membrane off our baits, so everything can leak out, so it's a very soft bait, and they're full of attractants that if we encapsulated it in with the coating or the membrane, it wouldn't have got out. So we use a lot of paste, so very, very soft. And if you go back in the day, it was all about paste fishing, HMV paste. So we will use paste, we'll conquer off our baits. And but I think the key and the most important thing is we need to realise if it's not food, then why should they eat it? It's like me, I can give you a wax apple, it'll look like a beautiful apple, you'll take a bite out of it. I'd suggest you be more suspicious next time round.
So this, we're talking about a lot of these subjects as an angler that's been in the industry for a while, or anglers that have been in the fishing world for a long time. What would you say to someone that's new to fishing, has never fished before, to try and encourage them to start fishing with your thesis or your belief in your system over what the mainstream would do?
Team Pallatrax is the reason I created Team Pallatrax. When I was a kid, I was a member of an angling club for a pub in Repton in Derby, Mount Pleasant, and it was all about communicating with the older anglers. I mean, I can still remember the guy that showed us so much fishing, Terry Walton. He was like a hero in the fishing club, and that's why the main part, or the cornerstone, so to speak, of Team Pallatrax was to get people to have somewhere where they can literally come in, they can be welcomed, they can be supported, they come on fishings, we show them exactly how we're fishing, we do the live feeds. It's all about that interaction. I think that personal interaction, I think we're in danger of losing that kind of context by, you know, people just watching things on YouTube and trying to learn off that. You know, that's really, say, a huge kind of thrust with Team Pallatrax, is to actually have somewhere where people new to fishing, whatever, can come and can see what we're doing and embrace it, and it's working phenomenally. So I would suggest if anybody wants to get involved with how we fish, you'll be welcomed into Team Pallatrax, and we can show you exactly why we do it, draw you to conclusions, and you can make your own conclusions. We're never here to tell people how to fish. We fish a particular way. We're using obviously almost match tactics in many ways, and actually it's a very simple way to use. You know, it's not a difficult system, it's not complicated, it's not 1,001 rigs. You know, there's one rig that we particularly focus on, being the LQ rig. The Stonze speaks for itself, and then every other product from the Gamma line all the way through to the baits, they actually do make sense, and they are based on fact and well researched. So Team Pallatrax is a great platform for people to get involved with the Pallatrax system of fishing.
Okay, and this last question comes in from Simon Wesley. He said, would you rather be attacked and fight off 100 duck-sized horses or 1 horse-sized duck?
100
duck-sized horses or 1 horse-sized duck?
I'll go for the 1 horse-sized duck. I'm not going to outrun it, that's for certain.
Well, thank you very much for your time. It's a rather odd one to end on, and thank you for having me down. It's a lovely venue, and I'm looking forward to coming down in a few more weeks' time. So if you have any more questions, put them down below and we'll probably answer them in a future video.
Fantastic. It's been good to meet you.